Hello. Hey, everybody. It's me. Oh, I need my microphone. Hi. There we go. Much better. So, welcome to the stream, the countdown stream this week for the new Step Back video. I can't wait to see what comes out, who lives, who dies, all that cool stuff. So, here we are. Let me just make sure. Sir Zhao Zhao, hello. So for anybody who's new to these streams, I know that there's probably a lot of Americans who usually don't have the day off, but do today because apparently Americans are having their version of Thanksgiving today. So I imagine that the Americans actually do get to watch my videos today, which usually this whole thing is just for the Europeans because of the time that it comes out. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about what it is I'm doing. This is a stream I do in the hour before I release each video, just to talk to the audience and get people hyped about the thing coming out. And then at the end, when the video comes out, I give you all a link, and stream's over, and you guys get to go and watch a new Step Back video. And I just kind of hang out with a smaller audience, no guests, just me and you guys, and I feed off whatever questions you guys have. So, Sir Zhao Zhao, hello. Only Bro, 555, hello. Meme Generator, konnichiwa. Bernelchi. We need a YouTube with blackjack and Vsauce. Why can't I stream when the Americans are on? Well, the reason I don't stream while the Americans are on is because this is when my videos come out, but also I live in Canada and this is my job-ish. And so I typically don't want to stream on the time when I'm like more interested in cooking supper with my wife and watching TV and enjoying my evenings. Not to say that I'll never do an evening stream, but I'd have to think it through. I will actually, if you guys are interested, if you go to Twitch and find the Dungeon Dwellers channel starting next Wednesday night in kind of the America's evening time. I'm actually, oh, here comes the kitty. If you come during that time, I'll be part of a stream, and I joined a online streaming D&D campaign. And so I'll be a character in a D&D campaign. Okay, so you said that in Saskatchewan, companies basically own all the farms. Doesn't that mean Canada has modern-day kulaks? Kulaks is a bit of an extreme term, but Saskatchewan does have this weird mix of... Because the thing about Saskatchewan is that it was really only settled by white people in the 20th century. And so it's like one of the last places in the Americas to actually have people move in. And at least white people move in. So it has a very high percentage of Indigenous people, but also new political ideas were able to take root there. And so Saskatchewan has this weird mix of very socially conservative stuff and borderline communist stuff. So I wouldn't say that all of the farms are part of they're not owned by a company, but what happens is that farmers in Saskatchewan are like any other farm, except that there is a company. It used to be public, now it's been privatized, but it was public when it was first made. It's called the Wheat Board, and Saskatchewan almost exclusively produces wheat from its farms. And so the Wheat Board would required to buy all of the wheat from all of the farmers, and then it would sell it at on a global marketplace, so they would get more money from it. So they would basically, it was a way for collectivizing the actual selling of their crops in a way that benefited all of the farmers. Now it's been privatized recently, and I think it's now owned by an Australian company, so it's not as profitable as it used to be. But, neoliberalism touches everything. And I think that it's a little sad. It's a little sad. And now Saskatchewan is run by a party called the Saskatchewan Party, which is a very right-wing party. So it's this is definitely something from its past, but there is still some remnants of these things. Like the Wheat Board is still technically a company, and there's also a chain of stores, like kind of like a chain of gas stations and convenience stores there. That's actually a co-op. So everyone who works there is a member, and it's like one of the biggest co-ops in the world. The other thing too is that they only have one internet/telephone provider, and it's a government one. It's called SaskTel. And so in some ways there's some like borderline communist stuff going on in Saskatchewan, but I think it only works because Saskatchewan is very sparsely populated, and it's like Saskatchewan today only has about 1 million people, and about 1/10 of them live in one city. So it's a little tough. And it's about the size of both Dakotas put together. The thing, though, is that Saskatchewan's no longer just a wheat-producing province, too. It's diversified its economy a little bit. Now it is produces a lot of potash, and it produces oil, and it produces I think it produces uranium. I think they found uranium in like northern Saskatchewan. So like the economy is diversified quite a bit. But a lot of the biggest, most famous socialist leaders in Canada are from Saskatchewan. The person who gave us our public health care service, the person who went to fight against the doctors to get Canada its single payer system, was a man named Tommy Douglas, and he founded a party called the Social Credit Party, which eventually would become the NDP, which are our Democratic Socialist Party today. So socialist activism in Saskatchewan is not uncommon, but also that's true in the United States too. In the early 20th century, there was a lot of socialist and anarchist activism in sort of the more rural mining places. That's where the IWW got its start. All right. Hello, Hell Fox Fox. Sir Zhao Zhao wants to know, thanks for doing a stream with ContraPoints. Now I'm a huge fan of her. Everybody should be a huge fan of ContraPoints. She is probably the most underrated. I wouldn't say underrated. I think that she's one of the most underexposed, amazing YouTubers out there, because there's a big discrepancy between how many subscribers she has and the amount of quality her content is. That's why I think that if you look at like the stats on her channel, everybody who subscribed to her, like she gets, her Patreon numbers are way better than her subscriber count would imply. And I think it's because a lot of people are seeing the very obvious value of the hard work she does. And I think that she very rightly gets well rewarded for that. And so, yeah, if you haven't checked out ContraPoints yet, you should. Every single video of hers is amazing. She's on a channel that's like 2 people long. Like her and H Bomber Guy are the only 2 channels where I will rewatch videos that I've seen before because they're just so good. Opinion on Huey Long? I don't know a ton about his. I know, like, socialist leader, was like interested in. It was like Louisiana. I think he was like maybe a New Orleans mayor, and he was trying to run for governor or something like that. And he was assassinated. He was a socialist in the 30s. A lot of that stuff sounds like things I would like. I don't know much about his actual work, so I'm missing a lot of. It's just a lot of stuff. I don't know where it is. So, yeah, Fatuous Torque, you will really like ContraPoints. If you like Step Back, I mean, they're very different channels, but ContraPoints is a good channel. You'll like it. You're going to have a good time. I'm sorry for the rest of your afternoon because it's gone now. When did the New Age movement start, and where is it on the political spectrum? The New Age movement, I think, started in the 70s, and I think it's It's a offshoot of the baby boomer kind of new spiritualist stuff that happened during the 60s. It's kind of like how that grew up. My mom was part of the New Age movement when I was young. And so my mom was like, I don't talk too much about my background or my my upbringing, but the New Age movement is kind of like this liberally kind of spiritualist wave that I think only makes sense to baby boomers. It's like cherry picking some parts of Buddhism and adding some weird occult shit into it. So, but like when people talk about how they were raised, I was actually never raised religiously. My dad is agnostic, and my mom claims she's a Christian, but believes in reincarnation and psychics and stuff. So, and I've never been to church ever in my life for anything that wasn't a wedding or a funeral or a non-church event. So I was raised in a completely irreligious household. I did have some being raised with people who believed in psychics and stuff like that, and that screwed me up as a child, but not as much as I think a hardcore religious upbringing would have. So I'd probably put them on the centrist part because baby boomers love to be centrists. Did you ever consider doing a video on the Omani Sultanate's holdings and the slave trade in East Africa? I did have one request to do the Arab slave trade, and then when I looked up the Arab slave trade and found out that all of the videos on the Arab slave trade are basically done by racist Islamophobes, then yeah, I kind of wanted to get in there. I kind of want to do a video that would be on a subject that's like somewhere between like something about slavery, but between like classical age slavery and Arab world slavery and colonial slavery and chattel slavery. I don't exactly know how that would work out, but I think that there'd be interesting things to do in that space. I also apologize if you hear a banging sound. There's people in the apartment above mine who are doing some sort of renovation work. They've been doing it since I moved here. So Christian Vibrecht asked if Tristan is the French version of Christian. It's not. Christian is the French version of Christian. It's the same. Tristan is actually its own name, and that it is. I don't think it's. I think that Tristan is a name that is used in pretty much all Western European languages, spelled exactly the same. So it can be a name in English, it can be a name in French, it can be a name in Spanish and Portuguese, and it's spelled exactly the same. But I think its roots are actually Welsh. I haven't done the the etymology of my name, but I think from what little I do know is that it's originally a Welsh name, and I was named Tristan because my parents were into the Arthurian legends, and so I'm actually named after Tristan, who is a knight of the Round Table. I think in the movie, one of the movies a little while back, I got a bird. All right. What happened to the rest of the podcast? So, Tokugawa Heavy Industries, are you asking about like the podcast that I do with Cody? Because there's two stories I can say about that. There's one about YouTubers United, which was the podcast that I did with Will Fox from The Exploration, and he broke up with me on that one. He didn't want to do the show anymore. When it comes to the podcast that I do with Cody, Emperor Tiger Star, and Tyler, Cody requested, and like the way that we're structuring the show is that the first hour or so, the educational parts where we talk about history, is the part that goes into the podcast, and the second half where we do Q&A and a little bit more like messing around, that part is going to be added into, is going to be just for the stream. It's just part of the show. This is the way so that the people who come to watch the show live get a reward in and of itself, and also so that there is a podcast product that isn't a long and rambly mess because people don't really like to watch. People don't particularly want to watch or listen to a 2-hour podcast anymore. We want to do stuff that's more sponsor friendly so that we can get sponsors on the podcast. That'd be cool. So they try to move Mexican politics in 2018. That's cool. Yeah. What's happening with the Japanese left today? It's a good question. You should ask them. I don't know much about Japanese politics. So they have proportional representation and are generally under 3 major umbrellas of people. Like they have tons and tons of political parties, but they basically form under 3 major coalitions. A liberal one, a conservative one, and a socialist one, like most countries. I don't know that much about Japanese politics, though. I know that it's going through like a hard right nationalist frenzy right now, but that's about it. Hey, David Zakedi. Can you do a video about the other groups that were oppressed during the Holocaust? Like, that would be interesting to do. I try to write that down. That would be so. There's a couple things I can say to that. I'm just gonna open up my trusty notebook. So there's a few things that I can say to that. One, talking about that subject, while it is important, is difficult because John Jewish victims. Talking about the Holocaust in any way is difficult, but also to talk about in a way that doesn't mention Jews as a rule can be easily interpreted as an anti-Semitic statement. And I would never want to talk about anti-Semitic. I wouldn't want to be described as anti-Semitic in any way. But I think if I talked about specific groups and their experience of the Holocaust, that might be a better angle. So if I did a video on Jehovah's Witnesses or disabled people or homosexuals and their experience with the Holocaust, I think that might actually be a interesting series of videos. But also, then I would be making several videos about the Holocaust, and that would be so depressing. But I can take a look into that. So Megat Kalis Raus bin Megat Abdul Rahim. Do you plan on doing a video about how the U.S. planned to invade Canada in the 1920s? War Plan Red. I have not heard of that before. I'm going to write that one down. But I can't think of why the Americans would want to invade the Canadians. We give them everything they want. I don't know. Tom G, I step back. What's good, my dude? Hey, Tom G. Corbin Beetleyoon. Your fascism video is so excellent, dude. I just got around to watching yesterday, and it was so well done. Thank you, Corbin. I appreciate that. I am very proud of that video. And the second, so like when it comes to like how I decide what videos I'm going to do, I like have like a complicated like numbers system to figure out which ones get moved to the top. And that one was completely not that. That was a video where when I was making my list of topics that I was going to do videos on, I just made it one of them as an executive decision because of the discussion that was going on Twitter. And this was like at the peak time when there was like the centrist socialists and fascists were talking to each other. That discussion was going on. And I thought that it was the right time to talk about fascism in its historical context, because I think we need to be more aware of these things than in the past. That's a little sad. We got a little complacent. Itgam, can you do a video about the history of knitting? All right, Itgam, if you can, in the chat, or if you send an email to Tristan at stepbackhistory.com, if you can convince me that I should make a video about knitting, I'll make a video about knitting. But you have to convince me. At the moment, it sounds like a video that I would have a hard time researching, that I don't know if it would be a very searchable topic, and I don't know if it would get a lot of traction. But I have never looked into it, and I am more than happy to be proven wrong. So please make your case. Let's take a looky here. Only Bro 555, can you do a video about the non-Juche Korean left anarchists fighting over the Japanese in Korea, left nationalists and other leftists in South Korea? So Only Bro 555, the person who is always just recommending I do videos on extremely obscure leftist topics. I agree. I like these kinds of things. I think I have some plan to talk about that. Like the autonomous Shinmin region is like the kind of stuff you're talking about. Here's the problem. My channel is growing much slower than it should be compared to other channels of the same size. And I think that the reason is because of the topics that I was choosing. I was going for very obscure topics that were not very search friendly. And it was causing me to have a bit of a problem making the kind of numbers that I need to make if I want to be able to do YouTube as my job by the time I finish my PhD, which is like, that's the goal. So videos like that, I've been putting in a little box, which is called like the someday box, which when I have 6 digits of subscribers, when I have a stable income from YouTube that I can then use to indulge myself and, tell people about something that they don't know anything about, then yes, I can do a video on a topic like that. Until then, I am trying to steer my content more in a direction to do stuff that people have heard of but not about, to pique more interest and get some more of that search traffic. Because at the moment, I'm just hovering around 29,000 subscribers, and I'm making about maybe about a third of what I would need to be making. So I need to triple my income by 2019 if I'm going to go full time by the time I finish. So I gotta try something out. I'm not saying that these are bad ideas or that I can't do those ideas, because I really want to do these ideas. I think that part of why I started Step Back was to give these hidden stories that not a lot of people know about the daylight they deserve. And not only that, but also look at things that people see familiar and unfamiliar ways. But I have to have a platform big enough to be able to champion causes that no one's heard of. And at the moment, I just don't have it. And if I do it now, not only will the video get no attention, but it will also it'll also hurt the growth of the channel. So it's something that I can sit on until until a different time. But it's not being forgotten. It's all being put away in like kind of future video ideas. So what is the origin of Canadian Thanksgiving and why is it on a different day? I think, I'm not 100% sure, because I know that Canadian Thanksgiving over the years, by the way, that's Will, the guy I was talking about. Will, Canadian Thanksgiving is on a different day. It's in October because I can't remember why, to be honest. It's on the second Monday of October, and the reason I don't know particularly, but I do know that it has changed over the few years, over the Canadian history. I know that it used to be at a different time because we used to have a Thanksgiving Day that was based on when a king or a prince or something like that recovered from an illness, and we had Thanksgiving on that day to be happy about it. But I don't know why Canadian Thanksgiving is in October. We don't have like a pilgrim story like the Americans do. It's just kind of a thing we do. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure there is an answer. I just don't know what it is. Freno Mythic, is this now? Yes, this is now. any Tom G asks any favorite historians who influence you a lot. Actually, I always say that Howard Zinn influenced me a lot. That should not surprise you if you know Howard Zinn's work and you're familiar with what he's done. But he wrote a book called A People's History of the United States. And it really turned a lot of the nationalist myths of the United States on its head and looked at a lot of things that people took for granted in ways that made them very much reanalyze the things that they were thinking. And that's what I want to do, is step back. Not always as dark as he went, but I'm definitely not going to shy away from that. But I just want to expand on the concept and give stories to people who don't get their stories told, or tell the whole truth of something that typically doesn't get its whole truth told. Could you do a video relating to the Central Powers in World War One, Sir Zhao Zhao? You'd have to tell me. I'd have to think about what that would be about. I'm not exactly a World War One expert, so I don't know a ton about stuff that happened, even in the Western powers, the Central Powers, like Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey. I don't really know much about what was going on during the war. Austria-Hungary basically fell apart, and Germany was pretty much keeping everything together itself. What anarchist society would you like to live in? I don't know. A lot of anarchist societies have only thrived because there was a war going on around it. So not sure. Not sure if there has been one that I would be down for living in quite yet. Emil Rockstead, thank you for finding my videos. I'm glad you like them. Only Bro asked, what if Henry Wallace became president instead of Truman? Well, that's like one of the biggest things that Oliver Stone's documentary kind of dwells on. And now I can't even think of Oliver Stone because it went down with the rest of Hollywood in the last few months. And now I can't, yeah. Okay, yeah, Turkey was the Ottoman Empire, but I'm trying to be applicable here. It was the Ottoman Empire in like its last gasping breaths, while it was like on its knees and about to fall apart. I love the Ottoman Empire, so don't think that I don't have the I don't have it on me. Could you do a video on the budding civilization of West Africa that were quelled by colonialism, warping our view of sub-Saharan history? I could take a look. I know that I do want to do something on. I want to do like a brief history of Africa, but I think that might be a bit big. But it could be several videos, and that would work. I have to find another pen. This pen died. Not to mention, there's still that person banging away upstairs. Can you guys tell me in the chat? Can you hear the guy hammering away at something upstairs? Well, do a request for sub-Saharan Africa. Africa. Multiculturalism in Austria-Hungary? Maybe. Does your average non-history person even know what Austria-Hungary is? I mean, they probably know Austria and Hungary, but they don't know that they were the same thing. And also, I get super nervous when I get too close to Eastern European history, because Eastern European people are super, super defensive about their history. And if I do even the slightest thing wrong, I can get in a lot of trouble. People call Nazis socialists, even though the Second Reich did more socialist things, and nobody calls them socialist. Overly sarcastic productions did a video on African history. That'd be good. I think, though, that I want to make a series that would be like a brief history of Africa that kind of starts like way, way back with like the fact that that's where humans are from, and all the way to today, but also gives a lot of time, because I think that a lot of like brief histories of Africa would spend a little bit of time in the early days and then like jump straight to like the race for Africa. And I don't think they talk a lot about the stuff that happened in the middle. And I think that would be a great place to dwell in for a series. So I'm gonna check out the YouTube channel From Nothing. I've never heard of that one. I'll write that down. Do I watch overtly sarcastic productions? Yes, I do. I'm subscribed to them. I don't watch every video, but I do. I do typically find out when they make a video. And another request to do a CK2 Let's Play. Especially now with Jade Dragon coming out, it's probably something I should consider doing. I just got to think of a night to do it, and then I actually have to go and buy Jade Dragon, so I'd have to like think about what I would do there. Eastern. I don't know what I didn't say anything about an Eastern. I don't. I know that you're being sarcastic, but I have no idea. Like when it comes to the Balkans, I am ignorant, and I am aware of my ignorance of the Balkans and that part of the world when it comes to history. And so, but I also know that it's a place that is very defensive of their history, and so I tend to steer clear, just because unless I like really, really, really delve down deep for something, I know that I'm going to get something wrong, and Eastern Europeans are super defensive on that stuff. Vingag from 128 from Montreal. Bienvenue. Ça va bien? Je vais à Montréal 5 ans passés. J'ai vivais à Sherbrooke. I live for all the people who just ran away because they heard that. That was me doing really, really terrible French, but I used to live in Quebec for about 3 years. I lived there from about 2010 until about 2013. But I lived in Sherbrooke because I did my undergrad at Bishop's. Do you have any opinions about Irish history, specifically into the see, Irish history is one of those things that I actually would like to go to. It's a thing that I don't know much about, but also I know that it's something that I could find out about because there are books about it in English where, like, you know, something about the king of Croatia or the king of Dalmatia in 1386 AD. If I get like the color of his hair wrong, I'm going to get like 100,000 angry comments. So I think that I could do. I think I do have some plans to do some Irish history, but it's good to know that people are thinking about that. Why is Estonia part of the Balkans? They speak Finno. I didn't think Estonia was. It's like in like the Baltic region. You should do a video on India. Perhaps that always draws in crowds from India. I do think that it is kind of a shame that I'm not talking about India enough. I had one idea and I'm thinking about it, but if anybody has really good India history stuff, I'm always open to hearing about it. I was talking about the Balkans, but Estonia is from the Baltic. It's the other side of Eastern Europe. You got some Irish people in the chat. Chunky Chunga, welcome. Should do a definitive analysis of socialism versus capitalism? Sure. That's a little out of my purview, but I think I could probably do something like that. Since I know that Will is here, I know that Will's channel basically went from being a politics channel to a history channel, so I don't think I'd feel so bad moving into other people's territory and doing some politics, doing some political theory. Maybe do a video on Magnus Hirschfeld and the gay movement in the German Empire. So is this like, is this like a guy who started that like school of like sexual studies in Germany, and basically I think he was like killed by the Nazis. Is it the same person? They kind of talked about him a little bit actually in I think it was the show Transparent in like season 2. I think they talked a little bit about that kind of that like school of study of human sexuality movement that was going on in Germany. Um What's your opinion on politics? Oh man, I thought everybody like has picked up by now that I'm like a fire breathing rampant leftist. Um, Technically, I think I consider myself a libertarian socialist or like an anarchist, but I would probably put my socialism as a higher priority than my anarchism. Um, I think at the moment capitalism is a much bigger threat to human society than the state is. But both are pretty damaging in the long term, and I would rather we didn't have either. But I also know that to do that would involve a lot of changes to human society that would take a long time and be very difficult. And I'm not a person who thinks that that's a thing that I'll be able to see in my lifetime, or if I did see it in my lifetime, that it would work out all that well. Because I actually, this will be controversial, but I do think that given how pernicious capitalism turned out to be, how sticky it ended up being, that I actually suspect that we're not going to see socialism until like the way that it will work out in a good way until we hit the post-scarcity economy. Because even now we produce 40% more stuff than the human race actually needs, but seems to not matter. So we really need to get into a situation where we can have like replicators or something and take care of literally everybody's needs without there even being a need for money. And that will be once we have like our fully automated luxury gay space communism, then we can have socialism proper, because I think that that's the only thing that would actually result in the desired things. Let's see. Have you heard about what happened with Wilfrid Laurier universities and their issues about free speech? I live in Toronto right now, not with Wilfrid Laurier, but with that asshole Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson is a terrible human being, and he is very lucky that he is tenured, because if I was the president of U of T, I'd have him fired on his ass for being a bigoted asshole a long time ago. And I don't believe in hell, but I wish there was one for people like Jordan Peterson to go to, because he's actively making the world a less safe place for trans people. And I have no qualms about thinking that people like that are kind of the worst. Why does Poland have a bunch of fascists today? I think that there's kind of like this remnant that's left over in former communist countries where they don't like communism because of their personal experiences with communism. They don't like capitalism because capitalism is kind of awful. And if you're not like born and raised in it, it makes no sense to you. So I feel like for those people, fascism seems like this weird third pillar that they can go with. That's why it seems to be popping up a lot in Eastern Europe. I could be wrong on that, but that seems to be the stuff that I read on the internet seems to be thinking that's why it's happening. What about leftism in Europe? If it's there, it's good. I like Jeremy Corbyn. I wish there was some more. What about mass immigration? I think mass immigration is good. I feel like people will be stronger as a species if we have different types of people with different beliefs, different backgrounds, different races, different thought patterns, different identities living together and enriching each other with each other's experiences and unique views on the world. And I feel like if we get too homogenous, we will get weak. And I think that diversity is the key to strength. Capitalism is kind of it's untenable with the environment, for sure. phrenomythics to like in Star Trek. I basically want Star Trek to be real. If anybody wants to ask me like a quick explanation as to what my political beliefs are, it's usually that I want Star Trek to be real. Um, so Jordan is bad because he's a transphobe who uh, intentionally misgenders his students and thinks and is fighting for his free speech to be a bigot. And I think that the only reason that he's getting any traction whatsoever is because he's using a group that hasn't been totally it hasn't become totally uncouth to be a jerk to be bigoted against publicly. If he was a person who was trying to defend the right for people to say the N-word, like nobody would be supporting him. But because it's still okay to be a jerk to trans people to some extent, somehow he's like getting this like free speech angle to him. And I think that he's actively toxic to culture. Turning Point USA, isn't Turning Point USA the weird organization that had that guy dressed in a diaper on a campus to own the libs? I think it was some conservative group like Turning Point USA where they sent a guy in a diaper to make some joke about safe spaces. It was like the weirdest thing ever. It's like an example of like the ultimate owning the libs by looking like an idiot. Do you think a country's impending ethno-nationalism will inevitably lead to eugenics? If left unchallenged, it will. Nationalism, I don't even think you need ethno-nationalism. It's just nationalism. Nationalism is bad in all forms. There is no such thing as good nationalism. I would even go so far to be super controversial. I would even go so far to say that patriotism is bad. I don't think that pride in one's nation or country is a good thing. Because every country is a violent organization that uses the violence of the state in order to oppress somebody. And if you're proud of that, I have news for you. I don't know who the most underestimatedly dangerous person in the world right now would be. That would take a lot of thinking. I used to think it was Karl Rove. I used to think that Karl Rove would like be the best. He'd be the best candidate for secretly Satan on Earth because he does everything behind the scenes and ruins everything. But I think that Karl Rove's like conservative dog whistle monster has like gone off the rails and now they can't control it anymore. And they're like, oh no, what are we going to do? I do think I did a talk. So W.R. Costin says that you're much more pessimistic than I when a society is fully automated. The only people I still think that when the society is fully automated, I did a talk on this for there was something called like Pint of Science. It was like it's where you do science talks in a pub, and I did a science talk in a pub where I talked about how automation fundamentally breaks some of the problems of how capitalism works, and we are going to need to address it, or we're going to have chaos. And I do think that even if we do have chaos, if we survive that chaos, we'll have to end up like capitalism just can't continue. There's just no way for it to continue. It's automation fundamentally breaks it in a big way. So Emperor Jacko, the violence that quote unquote immigrants are causing in Europe is mostly blown out of proportion, or it is basically ignoring a lot of the violence imposed on those people, or on top of that, it is trying to it doesn't show where the violence comes in, like compared to the baseline. And yeah, there is a lot of hard work that needs to be done when you do integrate people into a new society. It's hard, especially with people who are literally war refugees, like the people who are coming to Europe. But it's something that in the end needs to be done, or else like what else are you going to do? You can't just like say, no, you can't come in. You have to literally just like suffer in these war-torn regions and just die. Like, no, like that's just not the human thing to do. Like, yeah, if you actually have no sympathy for these people just because they're not white, like, go to hell. Not that I think that you believe that Emperor Jacko. I just have that issue. I don't know anything about the East Germany thing. I don't know about anything about Matt Pat calling. I think I remember that, but I don't remember very much about, like, I don't think I watched it because it Matt Pat's. I don't know. I don't know if I watched some videos on game theory and film theory, and I'm still not 100% I like those channels. I don't know if I like it or not. Because sometimes I'm like, why am I watching this? Like, there's no bigger takeaway. It's literally just I drew together some weird stuff, and it's not like a real critique or analysis. It's usually like essentially conspiracy theories and fan theories imposed on a work of fiction. And that's like, I don't know. I don't see the value. And calling Star Trek fascist, I think from his position, from what I remember, is that it came with kind of like this like liberal free market type mentality. And I was like, oh, that's gross. Okay, whatever. George Soros is Satan. I don't know George Soros. And also, yeah, Matt Pat's usually screwing around. Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, I have on two minds on Elon Musk. I think that being a billionaire who has an actual long-term plan, who actually thinks in long term, is pretty cool. But I also know that relying on billionaires to save our planet is the worst way to do it ever, because right now we seem to be betting all of our hopes on one company. And if that company isn't even doing super well, like, it's had some rough quarters. Like, what happens to all of our dreams of spaceflight if SpaceX goes bankrupt? Not to mention, I really wish that we went to space for scientific and humanitarian reasons rather than like sending millionaires around the moon or to like mine space asteroids for things. Like, I mean, that's still good, but I prefer if we like I like science. I like exploration. Why do we need to have privatized space? Come on. So Emperor Jekko, Black Pigeon Speaks is a neo-Nazi, first of all. He sends traffic to my channel all the time because somehow one of my videos gets suggested traffic from him, and he sends floods of trolls and Nazis to my channel. He is the worst. And if you look at, like, I think the best takedown of him was done by Sean and Jen, or Sean from the Sean and Jen channel, where he talks about the stuff about immigrants and mass immigration causing all these things. And it shows that they're literally cherry picking data to just make this group look more violent than they are. It's racist conspiracy theories. It's the same thing that people used to say about Jews and the Jewish conspiracy and all that kind of crap. It's the same, like, insanity. Yeah, the whole thing about Sweden being like this, I mean, okay, so do you take drugs or smoke weed? I do not. I don't. It's not that I don't as a rule. It's just that I don't. I just don't buy weed because I don't have the money for something like that. Weed's going to be legal in Canada, and I'll be able to get it at a store soon. And then I probably will every once in a while, but still, it's going to be pricey, and I don't have a lot of money. But I'm not against it, and I have done other drugs in my past, but um, it's not something that I've ever liked enough to like make a regular part of my day. It's usually something that I will do just to if I ever like smoke weed, it's because somebody offered it to me. I'm never a person who buys it. And so I don't really have any friends who smoke weed at the moment. I don't have any friends, period, right now because I moved. But I'm not against the concept of it. As opposed to and other drugs, I don't know. I have done other drugs. I just don't particularly I just didn't think it was a particularly amazing enough experience to risk getting arrested and all that stuff. Uh, but yeah, Jacko, Sean's video from Sean and Jen is probably the best video debunking the not only Black Pigeon Speaks, but his entire immigrants are ruining Western society bullshit. Um, Sean and Jen is actually another one of those YouTube channels that I think that I could watch. I've watched videos more than once on his stuff. He's really good. I think that Sean and Jen, or Sean, is a very, 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 very good YouTuber and makes some really great audio essays. Uh, So Jonathan, yeah, asked like, "Oh, you come into the stream first thing here's I don't have friends. I don't have any friends because I just moved to Toronto a few months ago. So I just don't know anybody in the city." All right. I do think that anarcho-primitivists. Okay, so the question about what's up with anarcho-primitivists. Anarcho-primitivists are weird. So they are people that think that there's a problem with technology and that technology has kind of ruined our society and that we need to go back to like our hunter-gatherer lifestyle. The problem is that while I do have some agreements, and I actually want to make a video about this at some point about how the agricultural revolution was not a universally good decision for our species, and that there is some evidence to show that life was healthier, more peaceful, and more egalitarian before we invented farming. But we currently have a society built upon it so much that we have a lot of people alive who would not be alive if we lived in like an anarcho-primitivist society. We have a society that can now support people who have physical and mental disabilities. We have a society that is rich enough that it can take care of people in their old age, and have medicine that can take care of people who have diseases or injuries. And so we've kind of passed that point, and we've kind of like it would be genocide to do it today. It's not the way forward for our species. We made our bed 10,000 years ago. And we just kind of got to lie in it now. And yeah, sometimes I do wish that I could just live in the country for a bit, but you know, it's not a coherent political philosophy. Okay, so there's some misunderstanding about Sweden being the rape capital of the world. It's actually because Sweden has a higher rape reporting. It has a wider definition of rape than other countries. And so people report rapes more often, which is good because rape is one of the most underreported crimes ever. It is one of the most underreported crimes. And so the Swedes have been able to up the reporting of it. But people who want to make Middle Eastern immigrants look bad will say that it's a rape crisis or a rape capital of the world, but it's actually just the rape reporting capital of the world. Because still something like less than a quarter of rapists ever get reported, and even then, like less than 2% of them ever get convicted. What do you think of Stimulator? Never heard of it. I will say that while I do consider myself anarchist, ideally, I don't delve too deeply into a lot of the variations in anarchist philosophy. So history more than I study politics. And so my anarchist philosophy is very much my own and very much like I don't really know a ton about all the different movements going on inside. So I don't know a ton about anarcho-primitivists, but what I do know is what I've said. Italy's 5-star movement I've never heard of. So Lion 24, I was saying that if we were to move back to our primitivist society, like if we went back to hunter-gatherers, because we've built a society that can now take care of people who have all sorts of who have physical, mental disabilities and are elderly and young and sick, that if we were to move back to that society now, it would be tantamount to committing genocide. Stimulators and anarchists, it's the end of the world as we know it series. I don't know anything about that. Yes, we have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to try to rapid fire these questions as much as I can. You guys have been keeping me busy this hour. I always am surprised by how much this hour always flies by, because you guys have so many questions and I can just rant on them forever. Oh, I do. Yeah, Michael Welbeck does make a point where while we will always have unlimited resources because of automation, we're not going to ever have unlimited land. I would say that if we can get serious about building colonies in space or something, that might be less of a problem. But you're right about there will be a scarcity that we will have to work out a way to allocate for things like prime real estate. But there is a lot of empty space, and there is some thought to if we have a society that is kind of post-work, we might not need like big dense cities anymore. Although I kind of like them, so I don't know. I have heard that there is a Lord of the Rings TV series in the works. I am cautiously optimistic. I know that it's probably going to be bad, but I hope it's good. I'm typically okay with Amazon's original stuff, so I hope it will be okay. But honestly, I'd rather we have more original content. I'm kind of tired of adaptations at this point. So Emperor Jacko, if you want to kind of, how do you make your voice heard? If you want to do something like that, you have to. I would take a lot of. I would actually watch ContraPoints, because ContraPoints does a really good job at talking about things that are politically controversial issues. But I think that one of the things that a lot of people do in the political space is that they don't come from where their opponents are or from where their viewers are. They kind of talk from their own position. And I think that the better political argumenters are the people who start from where their opponents are. They don't cherry pick things. They don't strawman their opponents. They talk to them as if they are people with positions that in their head are completely ethical, moral, and good. And then you have to systematically talk through why you disagree with all of their positions. And it takes one step at a time, and you have to be patient and you have to be kind, because that's the only way you're going to be convincing. And I do think that if there was a channel like ContraPoints is doing and like Sean is doing, where you take people who are like on the far right and you say like, all right, let's like break down why you think the way you do, and let's like pick it apart one by one, and don't do it in a judgmental fashion. Don't do it in an attacking fashion, because that doesn't help anybody. But try to just go one bit at a time. And it's slow and it'll be infuriating. And you're going to have to deal with people who have opinions that will make you cringe, but it'll be more constructive. And if I was ever going to be a political channel, that's how I would do it. Although that's probably the reason why I'm not doing it, because I think that it would be difficult to do. But you have to meet people where they are, I guess, is one of the things I would say for getting your voice heard, because people like stuff that they already agree with, and so you have to kind of nudge them. All right, so the new video should be live now. I'm going to give you guys the link, and then I am going to... Gosh, I have too many videos. Okay. The video is live. I will put it in the chat, and then it will be the end of this stream for today. So here you guys go. Please check out the video. You guys will like it. Of course, I will always say like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. For you Americans, happy Thanksgiving. And enjoy the new video. It's on Zoroastrianism. Have fun.